Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Happy 2025. So in this one we'll be creating a palm tree within Speedtree 10. This will be a from beginner to pro user. So without any further ado, let's dive in. So let's first create the scan trunk material that will be extracting the texture off. So let's go to materials, plus and minus icon, let's add new. Let's call this trunk scan. Let's add that. Let's go into the folder here, use native dialog, locate this 8K map. It will get the automated textures for the normal and so on. Just give it a few minutes. Okay, and now let's go over to the mesh. Let's hit the plus and minus icon, type in your trunk scan. Let's add that, and let's locate the LOD level 0, and it will automatically load the LOD level 1 and 2 for the medium and low version. So let's click yes and so on. Let's go back to the materials tab, go to the cutouts and mesh tab. Let's locate that trunk and so on. Now that's set up. Let's right click in the scene. Let's go down to mesh. Now we have our mesh in the scene. Let's firstly go to the window properties, go to the background, ambient light, and let's set this to solid color to better see the silhouette that we're creating. Now there's other two ways of doing this. You can go over to the material tab and locate the material here, scan trunk, or you can just go to the material right over here and just drag and drop it over the mesh and replace material like so. So now let's select the mesh, go down to the generation tab. Let's scroll down where we see the scale. Let's set this to 0.3 like so. Okay, so now the next step will be to extract a piece of this texture so we can extend this trunk off so we can create the rest of our palm tree. I have a dedicated video on that, but I'll quickly show you how you can do this. You select your mesh, right click in your scene. Let's go down to the geometry, photogrammetry, and mesh converter. So you'll get this T and B. So this is top and that's bottom. So let's press W on the keyboard. Let's take this down so we get this sort of chunking appearing. Let's select the bottom one. If this happens, you can quickly say all. Now we have our system here again. Now let's select the bottom one. Let's move this up and align this so it picks up the rest of the trunk, and move the top one down so we get something like this. So in order for you to view this, you can quickly click on the mesh converter icon here on the left in the generation. As you can see, we are generating the trunk that we want to use on the rest of our tree or our palm tree. Save this out as a texture here in the materials. Let's scroll down where we see the actions. Under settings, we have our resolution. We can set this for instance, 8K, and we want to create a new material. So I went ahead, but I'll quickly overwrite these. So let's call this palm tree bark extended, and just save this out. Just give it a few minutes to create the textures. So if we go back to the materials here, let's just quickly hide the mesh converter there. Select this, we have our palm tree bark extended. So now we have our shader that we can apply to the rest of our tree. So let's just give this a few minutes to sync. So now we're going to select our mesh, right click in the scene. We're going to go down to photogrammetry, and we'll use the bake stitch generator. Press W on the keyboard, and let's move this in position where we want to extend this off. E on the keyboard for rotation. Let's just rotate this so we have this matching where we want this to be. Will work, for instance. Okay, so now we can take our palm tree extended material and we can throw this on this branch material right over here. And in the branch, let's go to spine settings. Let's just increase this. We have a value that works for you. So in the spine, let's scroll down where we see noise and late noise. Let's introduce some late noise to this. So it's not that perfect and straight. Let's introduce some smoothness. Let's shape this end of this trunk. So let's go over to the skin tab and let's select the radius. Go over to the blue curve with a few dots here. Check this one down, this one up a bit. Now we have this set up. We can go into the branch. Let's go over to the UV tab. Let's enable fractional, and Let's increase this and let's give this a twist value as well, so we don't see that repeating pattern that much. Okay, so now we're going to put in our branches or stems, if we can put it that way. So let's select our branch, right click, go to add geometry, and let's go down to branches where we see verification. We select that, go over to the generation right over here on the left, and in the generation, let's set this to interval and let's increase the frequency to something about 20. I know it's a lot, but we'll work back from that. And let's introduce some spiral 0.5. Okay, and let's increase the first and last boundary to 0.999. And the first boundary, let's push this up till the value somewhere like this. So now let's go over to the spine tab right over here. And let's scroll down to the noise attributes right over here. And in the light noise, let's increase smoothness and decrease the amount just a little bit so they're a bit smoother. Okay, in the generation tab, let's go back to that and let's introduce some more spiraling. This will work. Okay, let's go back to the branch in the middle and go over to the spine tab, and in the gravity, that's negative value, so it goes upwards again. And in the branches, let's go to the gravity as well, and let's set this to a value of 0.38. So let's take this up, and the same goes for the orientation as well. All right, so now in the blue curve, let's add a point right over here. Let's decrease this amount, press H on the keyboard to hide this and re-enable this. All right, so let's go back to the generation tab and let's increase this value just a little bit. Okay, so now let's create the material for these stems / branches at the moment. So let's hit the plus and minus icon. Let's add a new material here and let's just call this stem. Okay, for this I'm just going to use the in-house gradient tool that Speedtree provides. In order to access that, just press cancel right over here, and where it says file, let's select that and set it to linear gradient. Okay, so now we have this going on, and now we just need to fine-tune this till we have a value that works for you. Okay, but I'll speed through this so you don't have to fiddle and watch me do this. So in the UV tab right over here, let's set this to lock. Okay, and let's scroll down and let's set this to end and set this to absolute. Okay, so now hit this little blue curve icon right over here in the texture map, and let's double click here and add another point so we can push this value right back to the beginning of the branches. Let's scroll out, and in the branches tab right over here, let's go over to the skin tab. Let's scroll down where we have the option squish, and let's give it the squish amount like 0.5, and let's rotate this 0.5 as well. Okay, so now in the skin tab, let's go over to where it says blend and let's introduce some more blending going on. We have some of the existing palm tree blending in with the new ones right over here. So now we can finesse this color even more. Let's select this one and let's make it a bit more gray along the line of this and introduce this so it's a bit more yellow. You guys can fine tune this, or even you can create your own maps within Photoshop and import that into Speedtree and use it further here. Okay, so now let's these branches again. Let's work with go over to the spine section and let's decrease this to 0. Okay, angle the leaves a bit more upwards. So let's fix this. So we have, okay, now it's looking like a palm tree. So now let's make this a little bit thicker at the ends here. Let's go over to the skin tab, enable the blue curve, and let's introduce a little bit more thickness right over here. And let's just shape this as we want this to be. Make this 0, so it's right at the point very thin. Let's go over to the view and set this to scribe. And let's introduce more polygons right over here for our leaves to have something to work off. So in the segments tab right over here on the left, let's go over to where it says optimized. Let's disable this. Okay, because this is now basically a hero tree that we're creating. And let's introduce a little bit more radial segments right over here. Okay, And in the length relative value, let's add a few more right over there as well. In the skin tab, let's make this a little bit thinner. We've got something going on right over there. Let's make the top ones a bit thinner based off the shape of the tree. Okay, and let's set this back to standard view. Okay, so now we have our basic structure set up. So now we need to add our leaves to our stems right over here. So let's locate one of these. Let's focus on this, F on the keyboard. So now let's select these and let's create our branches. Let's select these, go into the generation tab, and let's set this to Father Taxi. Okay, and set this to alternating and set this to 0.2. And in the spine tab, let's scroll down to the noise tab, as you might have guessed. Let's go over to the smooth tab. Let's introduce some smoothing. Let's take this down to very low amount. And again, let's go over to the render view and in the scribe mode, so we can see our points right over here. This won't matter anyway, because we'll be creating fronds off of this. This is just a bit easier to see what we're doing. So let's just go over to the segments tab right over here and let's disable the optimize. Okay, and let's introduce a few more. Stop zeroing out. Let's zero that out. A few more segments right over there as well for the radial. Okay, that looks great. So now let's put the generation tab. Let's scroll down to where it says extend parent. Let's set this to any. All right, and now let's go over to this spine tab and just play with the gravity. Okay, but I want only these ends to be more towards the gravity side of things, and I want the center ones to be a bit more stiff where it comes out. So let's go over to the blue curve. Okay, and let's introduce less gravity over there, more gravity at the points like so. And let's add some random values, just slightly random values. Okay, and the same goes for the angle. And let's angle these like this. Let's zero this out. Let's select this, zero this out, and angle this a bit more to the end of that. Okay, so now let's create the material for the leaves that we're about to create. Let's go to the plus and minus icon, add new. Let's just call these leaves. Okay. All these assets you can get from your scans. I've been using this. So let's go over here. Let's go back to our leaf assets right over here. Let's load in the textures. Yes, for the rest of it. Okay, and let's go over to the cutouts and let's edit our mesh right over here. Quickly cancel this. Let's edit our mesh. Okay, so now this is just basically creating your leaves that you'll be applying to those fronds that we'll be creating. So I'm just quickly going to run through this. This is just basic Speedtree knowledge, but for you beginners out there, I'm just quickly going to show you a basic setup that you can do. Let's add a point right over there and just basically angle this, and let's add that for let's just add that for everything right about now. And let's add that. And now let's select these branches right over here and go over to the skin tab where it says skin. Under type, let's change the polygons to spine only. Now they disappear. Now let's select the beautification stems again. Go over to the add geometry. Let's select our fronds. And now let's just apply this shader to the fronds. Okay, so now we have something going on here. Okay, let's go over to the render view. Let's put this to standard. Okay, so now we can start shaping this and aligning this color with the leaves and so on. So, but we need more variation in the leaves we are scattering. In order for us to do this, let's select the leaves cutout here and let's add another set. And this is where we'll add our other set of leaves. So the more you have, the better it will look in general. So let's add a few points here. Let me just quickly speed through this. Okay, let's add a point right over there. I'm just doing this roughly for you guys. Okay, and let's add this point right over there and angle this. Let's give this one just a few more tessellation points. Okay, let's add that. And one less in the medium and then on. Okay, so now you see we're starting to get some variations in that as well. One can also, the other way you can do this is by creating a few sets of these leaves, and in the material tab right over here, you can add a few more options. You can see if I add another one right over here, it blanks it out. But here you can have a variation on how many of those sort of leaves you want. So if I put 0.2, there only will be 0.2 of those. So let me quickly show you this. So let me just duplicate this one. Okay, and let me just delete this one. And let's set this to none, and let's create a new one. Edit. So now, for instance, I want this one with the dead leaf in the, well, that's starting to die. Let's take that one. Let's add those points right over there, and another few points. And let's angle this guy in, and let's add those in. Okay, so now in those ones right over here, we select leaves 2, and as you can see, just quickly go back to the leaves right over here and just delete this one. So as you can see, we have that leaf now in, but we can determine how many of those we want. Say for instance, we want less of the healthy ones and more of the dead ones, and so on. So that's a powerful way to create those sort of variation in your tree. Let's go over to the stem tab right over here, and now let's just play with the color so it matches the leaves a little bit closer. So let's just make it a little bit darker. But we want more definition in these leaves, and that is basically just adding new points to your mesh models that you are creating. So in the set of leaves right over here, let's just introduce some more tessellation amount for the high poly one, a little bit more, less for this one, and then obviously the one we have right now. And same goes for the next one. Let's edit that, complete with that one, and let's go over to the one right over here, and let's do the same. Introduce a few more triangle points, a few less, and then the low poly one that has a few. You can also model your own leaves in your DCC application of choice, and then just import those into Speedtree, and then it will work great as well. Okay, so now you can see we have a much smoother surface happening right over there. So now let's just move this out of the way. Now let's activate two shaded material right over here for both of these, like so. So in the front, let's just even this out. Okay, so now we just only need to shape these fronts a little bit more. So in the front generator right over here, go over to the segments tab, just to make sure we have enough segments right over here. And in the geometry, let's scroll down where we see the scale, width and height. So we have this little blue curve right over here. So let's double click and let's amend the shape at the points right over there. Double click to make this a bit smoother. Okay, so now let's introduce some two-sided material to this as well. So let's select the subsurface. I'm just going to use the albedo that we're using for the diffuse as well, but I'm just giving it some more saturation, increasing the brightness just a little bit. And for the subsurface map, I'm using the displacement. Okay, so if we introduce a bit more subsurface, and let's just make it 0.5 or 0.35. Okay, so let's just do that as well for the second set of these that we have. Let's add that diffuse. Let's increase the brightness and the contrast. Again, using the same displacement map and introducing it 0.5. So now we have some subsurface scattering going on. Okay, so now let's view all. Okay, so now we're getting our palm tree, but we need more of these leaves. So let's go over to the generation tab and let's decrease this amount to 0.1. See how this looks. Okay, we're getting there, and let's increase this even more, 0.8. Okay, so let's select this one again. If on the keyboard, let's just focus on this. Go to the branches right over here. In the spine, I'm not liking what's happening here with this wide angle we have got going there. So now let's select our starting angle, and let's just select this and see if we can close that gap. But I want to shape this as well. So let's go over to the spine length, double click on this. Let's add a few points right over here. So I want these ones to be a bit longer. Take these ones a bit in the middle, and the same goes for these ones as well. Okay, so now let's Shift F on the keyboard. So now we have our entire palm tree showing again. So now let's decrease the length of our main branches / stems so they're not this long. So let's decrease this amount. This looks great. All right, so now I'm going to show you how you can create a gradient effect so that the bottom leaves are more yellow than the top ones. Okay, so basically it's the same as my tutorial about seasons. It's the same principle. If you want to go watch that, you can check out on my channel, but I'll quickly show for you guys how you can do it right over here. Okay, so now let's go over to material sets and let's create a new material here and just call this leaves. Okay, so let's add our members. It's just going to use the leaves at the start, and let's use these second leaves as well. And let's go over to this one, and for this purpose, for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just gonna amend these to be a bit more brownish, like so, just to show you guys how you can create this. Let's go over to the material set, and let's set this one to spring, and this one, let's set this one to summer. Okay, so now let's bring in our seasonal light, add a force, and let's bring in our seasonal light. Okay, so let's just move this into position, so don't be afraid, it's disappearing at the moment. So let's select this, let's go over to the material right over here in the first set of branches here, and let's set this value to 0.15. okay, so now if we go over here and we move this down, okay, the reason it's not working is because I haven't added this material set leaf to the leaves I'm using right over here. So let me just quickly get that leaves in and add this one as well. So as you can see, we are getting this gradient that we are appearing here. So for instance, it is not working. You can go to your verification right over here and just decrease the descent offset value right over here to like 0.1. So now you will get your transition happening that you would like to have. So add this right over here and just randomize this value again. So let's decrease this amount so we have more of the green leaves. Let's move this down. So if we move this up a little bit more, so as you can see, when you add your material set leaves to your frond generator right over here, and you set the, let's say the date leaves to a value of 0.5 and set the season to, for this case, I'm inverting things. I'm putting this to spring, and then the leaves, the normal green leaves, I set this to transition to autumn or summer. And so this is what you'll be getting when you start doing this. You'll be getting this little gradient happening from green to, let's say, yellow or dead leaves at the bottom. And for instance, it's not working and it's not appearing. Just go to your set of branches right over there and just decrease this descent offset value to 0.1. okay, and then the other step you can do is select your fronds and just zero out the randomness value right over here, okay, and set this to a value of 1. okay, and sometimes you just need to re-randomize your leaves and such, and then it will reappear again. So let's introduce some more of these leaves at the bottom. So now you can just finesse this and get the right gradient you require to use. So something like this going on. Okay, so now the next step will be to add the little, let's say the dead leaves or the dead branches coming right out. So let's H on the keyboard, let's hide this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to Control C, Control V this. I'm just going to copy this, paste it right over there, and I'm going to the generation tab and I'm just going to rotate them, okay, and position them up like so. Okay, so this will be the same principle as fronds. So we'll be making them way shorter, like 0.1 or 0.5. Okay, you can use these actual geometry if you want. This would be a bit more accurate in my opinion. You can do this by, let's angle these ones up. Let's go over to the gravity and amend the gravity blue curve right over here. So we are inverting these ones upwards like so. Okay, so now all you need to do is to use these 3D. Let's go over to the add geometry and let's cap them. And now you can just play with the cap and give it more spikes and such. Go over to the geometry and let's just look at this, add a few settings, and let's just apply that stem to the cap as well. Right, and now we can just make them a little bit more shorter. Go over to the spine tab right over here and decrease the spine length to value like this. And now we're just going to increase the heck out of this. So let's increase the frequency. Okay, and a few more rotations. Okay, and now we're just going to duplicate this stem, and we're going to apply this, and we're just going to take this value and gray this out and make it a bit darker. And let's just add that to the cap as well. What you can do now is we can give this in the geometry tab in the first set of branches right over here. We can give this some random values as well for the length, random values, and for the starting angle also random values, and the same goes for the gravity as well for random values. Okay, so I'm just gonna go into the generation tab and just take this a little bit to the bottom. Okay, so now we're getting that detail that we require. But if this is too poly heavy for your scene and you would like to be more optimized, what you can do is let's hide the caps, select this, go over to the skin tab in the polygons, let's select spine only. So now we only have the spines, but now we need to create that sort of texture we want to use right over there. So we hit the plus and minus icon and just call this dead shits. And let's select okay, and I'm just going to quickly locate where I saved them. Okay, so I'll just select this albedo, then the maps right over here, go over to the cutouts, and let's create a quick cutout right over here. We're going to use this one. We're going to use actually a few of these. Just add those, add them right over here, a few points, give this a bit more tessellation. Add this for the high poly one, mid poly, and low poly. So let's select these, right click in your scene, let's add frond, and now all we need to do is add two-sided, and let's just throw this on that. So now you get the sort of dead textured alpha maps on your trunk right over here. So now you can increase this a bit more in the generation tab of this. So let's go over to the generation tab and let's increase this to a value of 150 and 40, and let's select this back to 120. Okay, so now we're getting a few more of these in our home tree, but you can go ahead and go into the cutouts and add another one. And now you just select a other piece you would like to be scattered. So let's select this one, add a few points right over here, there, and angle this so it's more or less than that angle. Add the high poly right over there, mid poly, and low poly. Let's add that. So now you have some few more variation, but I would go for this version because it is less poly heavy than the normal geometry wise one. So let's bring back our fronds for the leaves, and let's just scroll out and just quickly examine this. So guys, this is it for the tutorial. I hope you guys found this informative. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button down below. Leave a comment if you want to see anything else, and stay safe and take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.